Hi, welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. I'm Kristin Omdahl, and we're here live in Southwest Florida. Barely made it to the beach in time. It was pretty iffy on weather, but it looks like the weather's going to cooperate. So wait a couple seconds here before I begin for people to pop over from the pre-chat room, and also for everybody to get a chance to get notified that we've gone live. So we'll just wait a few seconds here. If you're joining live, please say hello. Let me know if you have any questions for me, or let me know what you're working on. Hi Donna, thanks for joining live. Hi Anna. Hi Judy. Hi Healing Springs and Val and Joe. Yes, it's been storming all day, Joe, and I risked coming down here. Hi Lucy and Lily and Julie and Geraldine and Rose and Judy. Thanks for joining live, everybody. It's been storming all day, and even on the way here, I could hear the rumbling of lots of thunder still. And I saw that there was some lighter sky towards the west, and I thought, I'm just going to go for it. Hi, Gail and Karen. It looks like we're between two storms, so I think that one just left, and there's another one coming, which is why I hear so much thunder. But the little bit of clear sky we have is showing us the beginning of a beautiful sunset, and even the contrast of the storm to the beautiful sun colors, it's all beautiful. So glad I took the chance. Hopefully the weather stays dry for the whole 30 minutes we're down here, but we took a chance, and so far it's working. So thank you all for joining me. Welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. This is episode 439, and we are here live in Southwest Florida, waiting on the sunset over the west of the Gulf of Mexico. Hi Melanie, hi Lisa. Yes, the sunset is going to be gorgeous, absolutely beautiful. Anna says it looks like a movie. It is pretty beautiful, I will say. I absolutely agree. Hi Marcia and Jermaine, Cynthia, Doreen, Martha from California. Thank you all for joining me live. I know I missed a few names while I started talking, but that's all right. I appreciate you all being here. Hi Jackie and Barbara. Yeah, we're supposed to have a thunder moon and an eclipse tonight, so I didn't get a chance to see what time that was all going to happen. I'm going to look it up again when I get home. I would like, if it's not too late, I would definitely like to check that out tonight too, if the sky's clear, so we'll see. But it is a beautiful sky right now, so at least we can enjoy the sunset for now. All right, does anybody have any questions before we get started? Hi, Debbie. Oh, if anybody's wondering, I'm wearing my tassel earrings made in Be So Fine yarn. You can find this as a free pattern on the website, and you can find it as a video here on my YouTube channel. Hi, Glory. And I'm wearing a full Amazon outfit again tonight. I've got my favorite tank top dress in the leopard print and the cardigan, t-shirt cardigan that I love to tie in the middle. Okay, so we've been talking about foundation ovals and how to even bead them on the last episode. And so I thought I'd take that one step further and show you how to do some beading with the foundation ovals, and even just beading in general, once we put our yarn put our beads onto our yarn in advance, which gives us different options than when we put them on individually with that skinny crochet hook. Remember how last time we talked about the benefits of not stringing your beads first and be able to add one whenever you need it? Well, that has pluses and minuses, just like everything else has pluses and minuses. And so now I'm going to show you how some of the pluses and minuses to adding your beads in advance. So you could do, if the hole permits, which this one does, you could use a crochet hook to get it on as well, but it is a little bit easier to just add an appropriate size needle. For this one, I'm using a yarn needle. Don't need a beading needle because the hole is large and the yarn is thick. So simply sliding them onto the yarn. And I'll grab a handful of them. better to add more than less at this point, because you will not be able to add more beads without cutting the yarn. Now, I don't have a problem with cutting the yarn to add more beads. I would rather do that than carry 1,000 beads, for example, at the beginning of a really large project. I find having to cut the yarn every once in a while just means I have a couple of ends to weave in. And if you know how to weave in loose ends, it's no trouble whatsoever. But if you don't want to do that every 10 beads or so, you want to put a fair amount onto your work so that you're not doing it all the time as well. So somewhere in the middle, some type of moderation to it. So we're going to add, what I thought I'd do is continue on from the row we last worked. Where was that last row? So on this last row here, we worked a double crochet chain one, and we'll come back to that and I'll show you how to do something similar to that with this one. But I wanted to start with some foundation ovals to show you have the option of working into either the chain side or the double crochet side once you have beads strung on. And that's because when you're adding the bead as we go, like we did last time, it's very difficult to do it in the middle of a, let's say, a double crochet stitch, because you would have to pull the bead through all of those loops remaining on your hook, whereas doing it in a chain is easy because you're just slipping it onto the working loop on your yarn. So now I'll show you, let's start with just doing a foundation oval on its own first. So let's say we're going to do a chain 4, let's see, what do we do here? Let's do a chain 5. Let's see, what am I going to do? Yeah, we'll do a chain 5 double treble for these, make them nice and big. So yarn over 3 times. Actually, let's do a chain 5 treble crochet. So I did chain 5, yarn over twice, insert your hook in the 5th chain from your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over through 2. Okay, so I've got a chain 5 and a treble crochet. So now for my second one, I'm going to do the bead on the chain side. So for the chain 5, we would slip the bead on the center chain, which would be the 3rd of the chain 5. So I did a chain 2. I'm going to slide my bead right up to my work and work the next chain. There's my chain 3, then chain 4 and chain 5, and then come back and work the treble crochet into the first of those 5 chains, or the 5th chain from your hook. Okay? And now we have the bead in the middle of the chain side. Okay, and I'm going to compare this to you with the one that we did where we added the bead as we go, because you're going to see some major differences between these. Okay, so now we're going to do the chain 5, and now we'll add the bead into the middle of our treble crochet. So yarn over twice, insert our hook, yarn over, pull the loop, yarn over, pull through 2. So it's a yarn over, pull through 2 3 times. So I'm going to add the bead on the second, or the center, of the yarn over, pull through 2. We added our bead, then yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over, pull through 2. So it ended up being in the center of the treble crochet. Okay, and so now we've added, which actually looks, it goes into the center, which almost looks like it could fit right into the center, whereas the one we did on the chain ends up being on the outside here. You could try to put it in there, but I don't know if it'll stay. You could try, but they're not placed there. I just kind of manipulated them to go in there. So I'll pull that one back out and pull this one back out so you can see where they actually go. And they aren't actually placed nearly as nicely as the ones where we place them into the yarn. They stay in place a lot better for this particular application. Now, when you're doing, but I'm going to cut this now and show you how this is very convenient though when you're working in a row. So from our experiment here, I would say whenever possible, I would add the beads to as you go, if you can get a hole on your bead large enough, a crochet hook small enough, and yarn thin enough to be doubled through the bead. which is all the things that we talked about yesterday, because I think that looked better for foundation ovals. Now, this would not look as obvious if we were using small beads either. And again, working into the double crochet, I think was a much better look than working into the chain. So that would be something to consider also. But if you use smaller beads, this wouldn't be so obvious either. Okay, so now we'll tie our yarn back to our crochet hook. Then we'll continue on from that row of stitches that we started last night too, or yesterday morning. Okay, so we were doing a double crochet chain one here. Yeah, I'm using big beads so that it's easier to see on camera for right now, but if we were doing a project, like doing a shawl or something, I think I would prefer smaller beads for that. Okay, so we slip stitch to the last double crochet, chain one, skip the next stitch, and double crochet in the next stitch. I'm going to skip beading on the first stitch just to get going here. Okay, so the stitch pattern we started here was putting the bead into the chain one space. So before I do the next chain one, I'm going to slide my bead up, right up to my work, chain one, skip the next stitch, and double crochet in the next stitch. And we're going to do a couple of these so that we can compare them to the ones we did the other way. And this starts a whole other conversation about where you can figure out where you place the bead before you slip it can bring your bead to the front or back of the work. And we might have time to go over that too. So right now, by placing the bead behind the slip stitch, so this is the way the work was facing me as I worked. Notice how the beads popped to the back of my work. So now I'm going to do that chain one where I slide the bead up to my hook. But now I'm going to intentionally keep the bead to the front of the slip stitch, to the front of the chain one, I mean. Ah! The yarn got tangled. Keep it to the front, and this one should pop the other way now. Yeah, so you can see that this one's popping to the front, and the other ones are popping to the back of the work. So that can be handy when you're working beads on both sides of your rows. If you're only doing beads on every other row, it doesn't matter which way you do it. If you're doing beads on every row, you're either going, if you do them in exactly the same way, you're either going to get them all popping to the back of the work or all popping to the front of the work. I didn't say that right, did I? No. If you're doing it on every row, some are going to be to the front and some are going to be to the back, which could be great too if you want your piece to be reversible. But it's still a design decision to make, because do you want your piece to be completely symmetrically, or actually be stripy reversible, because it would be every other row. And I'm not sure if that is always what I would want for my look either. So you would have to consider, do you want everything right side facing, everything wrong side facing, alternating it, and you could maybe alternate within the same row so that it wouldn't be stripy from row to row. It's all important. It's definitely all important to figure out. But having said all that, if you have a project where you're able to add the beads as you go, not so much a consideration, because then they don't pop to the front or back of the work. They stay right in the center of the work. So when that's an option, that's something to consider as well. But it will end up being a design component to figure out if you're going to hold the bead to the front of the chain or to the back of the chain, because however you hold it, that is where the bead will go. Does anybody have any questions for me? So these are the ones that faced wrong side, because this is the way the work faces me. So those two are facing the right side of the work, and those two are facing the wrong side of the work. and these are just right in the center. Those are the ones we added as we went along with the crochet hook last night, and these are the ones that we're adding by stringing the beads onto the yarn first and then either holding them to the back of the chain or to the front of the chain. And if you want me to show you those two again, I can, but let's see if there's any questions first. And wow, look at that pretty sky. It's so warm out here though. Probably didn't need a cardigan. I'm gonna have to take it off. Whew, already better. Well, I don't see any questions, so maybe that's good. But I'll wait just a minute just to be sure. And maybe I'll do one more in each direction just for the heck of it. So, all right, so if we're gonna do a chain, work to the back of the work, or bead that's gonna face to the back of the work, we're gonna hold the bead to the back of the chain. See how we just held it to the back of the chain? And skip one and double crochet. And then we'll slide a bead up. And hold it to the front of the chain. See how we're holding it to the front of the chain now? And then skip one, double crochet in the next stitch. And so you can see from one stitch to the next, this one faces to the wrong side of the work and this one faces to the right side of the work. Yeah, these beads would be great on a Christmas ornament, or maybe even the beading along a Christmas tree skirt. How many ovals do you figure out for chains? It depends on what size oval you're using. If I'm using a chain 3 double crochet, I usually count that. I usually substitute 3 chains or work 3 double crochets into it, depending on what I'm doing with it. If I'm doing a chain 4 treble crochet, I would count that as 4 chains, and a chain 5 double treble crochet, I would count that as 5 chains. Sometimes I add a chain but don't increase the size of the stitch, and that's just to give an exaggerated scallop. Let's see, let me cut the yarn and we can do some of those again, because I want to show you that sometimes, so if I'm just adding a normal size foundation oval, I would add chain 3 double crochet to count as 3 chains, or to replace 3 chains, however you want to word that. Chain 4 treble crochet to replicate chain 4 chains, and chain 5 double treble to replicate 5 chains, or to replace 5 chains. So if your long chain had a multiple of 5 and you thought 5 would work for the stitch pattern you're working into it, if you're just working double crochet or single crochet, that's pretty easy. But if you're doing a stitch pattern, you may want to decide on which one works better for the stitch pattern as well. Okay, so here's a chain 3 and double crochet into the 3rd chain from hook. Then we'll do a chain 4 and still a double crochet, and you'll see that it just makes that chain pop a little bit more. Sometimes I like that when I'm going to just leave that one open, like for the top of a top-down sweater that's going to have foundation ovals at the top, where the chain is going to be left exposed. That ends up being more like a scallop then. So then we'll do a chain 4 and a treble crochet, and those are more appropriately the same size, so they'll look a little more even, like the first chain 3 double crochet. And then if we do a chain 5 treble crochet, that ends up having a little more of a scallop to it, which again, this would work for making it a little more decorative. Sometimes I do that on belts too. And then we'll do a chain 5 double treble, which would be more of a 1-to-1, where they're the same size on both sides of the oval. This is called Cobalt Blue, and it's in Be So Tender yarn. Am I showing it enough? Okay, so now let's go back and look at all of these so you can see the differences. So then we have, this is the chain 3 double crochet, this is the chain 4 double crochet, this is the chain 4 treble crochet, this is the chain 5 treble crochet, and this is the chain 5 double treble crochet. So depending on what kind of look you want, this is definitely more exaggerated. This one is more exaggerated. So if you want it to look more like pearls or scallops, you can use small beads. Absolutely. I was using large beads so that you can see them on the camera, but yes, if I was doing a design, I would probably use much smaller beads. This is the chain 3 double crochet, chain 4 double crochet, chain 4 treble crochet, chain 5 treble crochet, and chain 5 double treble crochet. And you can see they're very small variations, but they do actually give you a different look. And then somebody asked yesterday if you could replace beginning cluster stitches with foundation ovals, and the quick answer is yes, because they're ultimately very similar. So let me show you one of those now. So let's do a chain 5 and a 2 double treble cluster into the 5th chain from hook. Now let's do a 3 double treble cluster. Make it a little more exaggerated so you can see what I mean. And this would actually be a really cool way to make a thicker or more substantial belt as well. So that was the chain 5 and 3 double treble cluster. Okay, so ultimately it's very similar to what we did here. The only difference is next to the chain we have a cluster stitch instead of a singular stitch. So you could still add a bead in there if you wanted to, but you could also make this a strip, which would make it a beautiful headband or a beautiful belt, or it could be the beginning of a top-down sweater or the beginning of the edge of a shawl or a scarf, because when you work into the side with the chains, the other side is going to be a beautiful scalloped edge that's going to be more scalloped than the opposite end of a foundation oval because it's a cluster stitch. See, look at how pretty that is as a strip. We'll do a couple more so you see what I mean. Yep, this is like the beginning of a delta stitch. That's right. Not nearly as complicated though. There we would be adding 2 and 3 components to this even. And remember, you could do this in the chain 3 double crochet or the chain 4 treble crochet. You could do cluster stitches in either of those as well. So imagine that as a headband. Wouldn't that be cute? Or as a necklace, or as a belt, or as the beginning of any project. So I'm going to work into the side of it now, a row of double crochet. I'll work double crochet over the chain side of things. And because we did a chain 5, I'm going to work 5 double crochets across each across each oval, let's say. Because for what we're doing right now, for all intents and purposes, they are ovals, right? And then we'll compare this to the ovals that we worked sideways in yesterday. You'll see what a different look this becomes. Yes, foundation ovals give a lot more stretch to a row than a beginning chain. That's one of the reasons why I developed them in the first place. Okay, so now you can see that as we're working these rows, that scallop edge ends up just becoming a little bit more dramatic and a little more pronounced than it did, let's see, here. So here we did a foundation oval with beads in it and then working into stitches. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook with Biseau tender yarn in colorway Cobalt. So you can see here we did foundation ovals with beads and then worked double crochets into the chain side of the ovals, into the one side of the ovals. And this time we did kind of foundation ovals but with cluster stitches instead of just single stitches. And we worked double crochet along the edge. So we end up making a beautiful edging, whether you're doing this at the edge of a scarf, a very beautiful scallop or pearl edge to your top-down project. Does anybody have any questions about that? And that would also work for everything else we talked about. So for the increases, like when we did increases at the ends of these rows, you could have done cluster stitches there instead of regular double crochets to make those more exaggerated as well. That would have worked as well. Oh, the sky's really lighting up now. How pretty. Does anybody have any other questions about foundation ovals? We've got some beautiful orange and gold showing up now. I got to show you more of the sky because there's even more behind that storm too. That was a huge storm that just came through here. There's a little bit of the sunset coming through there. Then we've got more of it popping through here. And then we've got another storm coming down there. And then behind me, we've got some storms too. So you can see, we've got a bunch of storms back there too. So who knows what's going to happen. Probably going to storm for the rest of the night. And that's okay. But man, we're getting some beautiful colors popping up here. Yeah, none of these storms look good, Joe. None of them do. We've had rip-roaring storms all day long. Can you do a cluster stitch on the other side of... I don't understand what that says. Sorry. If your questions get missed, please leave them in the recorded version of the podcast, and I will try to add them to another podcast if they're... if they happen to pertain to what we're working on. If it's a different technique altogether, I can certainly add it to the list of things to do. But if you have questions specific to this tonight, and I have time, I will certainly try to add it. And if I haven't understood or read your question, just wait a few minutes and pop them into the recorded version, and then I'll be able to read them more thoroughly, and you'll have an opportunity to write them slower too. Joe wants a tutorial on make one left and make one right. I'm guessing you mean in knitting, and yes, we can do that. If I would prefer to see that kind of a suggestion in the recorded version, if you don't mind. I don't have access to the live questions or the live comments, so the only way I can keep track of things, if I can keep track of them at all, is if I see them in the recorded comments. So if you don't mind, don't be sorry, but if you don't mind, it would be really helpful for me. I don't retain much during the live streams. That's on me. I don't retain much information. I think it's because I'm working so hard on getting my information out that I have a really hard time retaining requests while we're live, so it's really helpful for me to see them in the recorded version. But if anybody wants to stick around for another couple of minutes, we can go through... well, maybe now you'll remember to do it a second time for me, Joe, because I'd really appreciate it, because that's fantastic, and I do want lots of knitting and crochet requests for things to work on here, especially little things that we can get to in 30 minutes. So that is a wonderful suggestion, so thank you, Joe. Okay, I see a 4. There were others that came first, but I didn't catch them in time, because I was still talking. All right, so... we'll go to Volume 1, Issue 4, and I think someone said first quote, so I can do that. Ooh, this is a good one. This is by Amelia Earhart. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. Isn't that the truth? Sometimes you have to be really courageous to stand up for yourself, to stand up for something in order to have peace in a situation. It is not always easy, but it's always worth it. Even if it doesn't seem easy or it seems terrifying at first, it always ends up being worth it, because there is nothing like having peace. Nothing in the world. It's priceless. It's not always easy to get there, but it is absolutely amazing when you do. So thank you, Amelia Earhart. Let's read that again. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. No kidding. Absolutely true. So true. And like we say all the time, these are reminders. You know, sometimes we forget about, like I was having some thoughts earlier today of second guessing a time recently when I was courageous and stood up for the right thing. And it's cost me some things in the process, but it has also given me peace. And I'm starting to feel a little guilty this morning or this afternoon thinking about it. And you know what? I needed to read this because it is always right to stand up for the right things, no matter what it ends up costing. Well, maybe there's exceptions to that too. But in this case, obviously there was fallout. In order to be courageous and stand up and do the right thing, there were some things that I had to lose in order to gain peace. But that's life, right? Nothing works out perfectly, and you know what? I still feel better for always taking that little step of courage to do the right thing. At the end of the day, you're not only doing the right thing for yourself, you're setting a good example for the people around you. Even if you don't get everything you want, ultimately you're doing the right thing. Look at that sky. Oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. Does anybody have any other questions? Oh man, I could stare at that sky forever. It's so beautiful. I might stay and take a walk for a little bit, and if I get some good photos, I'll share them on social media. All right, well, thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy evening to spend a few minutes with me. I hope you enjoyed the gorgeous sunset, the demo, chatting with me and everyone else here. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.